You text her and she takes forever to respond. You ask her out and she gives you a maybe. You shower her with attention and compliments, yet she seems less interested than before. Meanwhile, you notice that guy who barely acknowledges her existence somehow has her constantly trying to get his attention. What's going on here? Why does ignoring her seem to work better than treating her like a princess? Today, I'm going to take you deep inside the female psychology to understand why withdrawal of attention can be more powerful than giving attention. I'll explain the evolutionary and psychological reasons behind this phenomenon, show you how to use this knowledge ethically, and give you practical strategies that actually work. But first, let me be crystal clear about something important. This isn't about being cruel or manipulative. This isn't about punishing women or playing mind games to hurt them. What I'm talking about is understanding female psychology, so you can create genuine attraction and establish healthy boundaries in your relationships. There's a massive difference between strategic withdrawal of attention and being an emotionally abusive person. We're here to become better men, not worse ones. Now let's dive into the psychology behind why ignoring her works so effectively. Women live in what I call the attention economy. From the moment they wake up until they go to sleep, women are constantly receiving, processing, and seeking attention from others. Think about it. The average woman checks her phone over 150 times per day. She's getting likes on Instagram, comments on her photos, messages from multiple guys, compliments from friends, and validation from co-workers. This constant stream of attention becomes like oxygen to her. She doesn't just want it, she needs it to feel valuable and worthy. But here's where it gets interesting from a psychological perspective. When something is abundant, it loses its value. When every guy is giving her attention, that attention becomes worthless. Imagine you're collecting baseball cards, and everyone keeps giving you the same common card over and over again. You'd probably throw them in a drawer and forget about them. But if someone had a rare card that nobody else could get, suddenly that card becomes incredibly valuable to you. That's exactly what happens when you withdraw your attention from a woman who's used to getting it from everyone else. The psychological principle at work here is called the scarcity principle. Our brains are wired to value things that are rare or difficult to obtain. When you stop giving her the same attention that every other guy provides, you immediately become different. You become the rare card in her collection that she doesn't have yet. But there's an even deeper psychological mechanism at play here, and it has to do with how women's brains have evolved over thousands of years. To understand why ignoring her works, we need to go back to our evolutionary roots. For most of human history, women's survival depended heavily on their ability to maintain social connections and secure resources from the group. A woman who was ignored or ostracized by her tribe faced serious threats to her survival and the survival of her children. This evolutionary pressure shaped the female brain to be extremely sensitive to social feedback. Women developed an internal alarm system that goes off whenever they sense they might be losing social status or attention. This isn't conscious most of the time. It's a deep primal response that triggers anxiety and compulsive behavior when attention is withdrawn. Think about how women react to being unfriended on social media, or when their posts don't get enough likes, or when they're not invited to a social event. The emotional response is often much stronger than you'd expect from such minor incidents. That's because their brains are interpreting these situations as potential threats to their social survival. Men's brains evolved differently. We had to be able to function alone for extended periods while hunting or protecting territory. We developed more internal reference points for our self-worth. That's why men can generally handle being ignored much better than women can. For us, solitude isn't a threat, it's familiar territory. When you ignore a woman, especially one who's used to constant male attention, you're triggering this ancient alarm system in her brain. She experiences a form of psychological distress that compels her to do whatever it takes to regain that lost attention. This isn't manipulation on your part, it's simply how her psychology works. Here's another crucial psychological principle that explains why ignoring her is so effective: the contrast effect. This principle states that we judge everything relative to what came before it. If you've been giving a woman constant attention and validation, and then you suddenly withdraw it, the contrast is jarring. Imagine you're in a warm room and someone gradually turns down the temperature. You might not notice the change immediately. But if you're in a warm room and suddenly someone opens all the windows in the middle of winter, you'll definitely notice. That's the contrast effect. Most guys make the mistake of being consistently available and attentive from the beginning. They text back immediately, they're always free when she wants to hang out, they agree with everything she says, and they shower her with compliments. While this might seem like the right approach, It actually works against you because there's no contrast. When you establish a pattern of giving attention and then occasionally withdraw it, the contrast becomes powerful. She notices when your attention is missing because she's become accustomed to having it. This creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, which is one of the most powerful behavioral conditioning tools known to psychology. Intermittent reinforcement is the same principle that makes gambling so addictive. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you never know when the next win is coming. This unpredictability creates a powerful psychological hook that keeps people coming back for more. When you selectively ignore her, you're creating that same intermittent reinforcement pattern with your attention. Women are psychologically wired to be attracted to men they have to work for. This goes against what most guys think should work, but it's backed by decades of psychological research. The principle is called the pursuit of the unattainable, and it's deeply embedded in human psychology. When something is easily obtained, our brains automatically assign it lower value. When something requires effort to obtain, we value it more highly. This happens because our brains assume that if something is difficult to get, it must be worth having. Otherwise, why would it be so hard to obtain? Think about your own experiences. The things you've had to work hardest for in life are probably the things you value most. The job you had to interview for multiple times, the skill you spent years developing, the goal you struggled to achieve. Easy victories don't create the same sense of satisfaction or value. The same principle applies to attraction. When you make yourself easily available to a woman, her brain automatically categorizes you as lower value. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because that's how human psychology works. We value what we have to pursue. When you ignore her, you force her into the pursuit position. Suddenly, she's the one wondering what you're thinking. She's the one trying to figure out how to get your attention. She's the one investing emotional energy into the interaction. This shift in dynamics creates attraction because it triggers her psychological drive to pursue what she cannot easily have. Most women, especially attractive ones, live in a constant state of external validation. Their sense of self-worth comes largely from how others perceive and treat them. This creates what I call validation dependency, where they need regular doses of positive feedback to maintain their emotional equilibrium. When you've been providing consistent validation and attention, and then you suddenly withdraw it, you create what psychologists call an extinction burst. This term comes from behavioral psychology and describes what happens when a previously rewarded behavior suddenly stops being rewarded. Imagine you have a lab rat that's been getting food every time it presses a lever. If you suddenly stop giving food when the lever is pressed, the rat doesn't just give up. Instead, it presses the lever more frantically than ever before. It tries everything it can think of to get the food reward back. This is an extinction burst. The same thing happens when you withdraw validation from a woman who's become accustomed to receiving it from you. Instead of just accepting the loss and moving on, she'll often increase her efforts to regain that validation. She might text you more, try to make you jealous, dress more provocatively around you, or engage in behaviors designed to recapture your attention. This isn't because she's necessarily interested in you romantically, it's because her psychological equilibrium has been disrupted and she needs to restore it by getting that validation back. Understanding this mechanism helps you see why ignoring her can be so effective at getting her to invest more effort into the interaction. Humans are naturally curious creatures. We have an innate drive to understand and categorize CE. When you ignore a woman who expects your attention, you become a puzzle she needs to solve. Her brain starts asking questions. Why isn't he responding like other guys? What makes him different? What is he thinking about? Am I not attractive enough for him? What would it take to get his attention? These questions create a mental obsession. She finds herself thinking about you more than she would if you were just another guy showering her with predictable attention. You become the interesting mystery in her otherwise predictable world of male validation. This mystery factor is especially powerful with women who are used to having men figured out. Attractive women often develop a sense of confidence about their ability to predict and control male behavior. When you don't behave according to her script, it challenges her assumptions and forces her to pay closer attention to you. The key is to be mysteriously unavailable, not obviously playing games. There's a difference between being genuinely busy with your own life and purpose and artificially creating distance just to manipulate her emotions. Women are intuitive and can usually sense the difference between authentic unavailability and manufactured games. When you ignore a woman, especially in social situations, you're also leveraging the power of social proof. Other people notice when someone doesn't react to an attractive woman the way they expect. This creates intrigue not just in her, but in everyone watching the interaction. Imagine you're at a party and there's an attractive woman who's clearly used to being the center of attention. Every guy is trying to talk to her, buy her drinks, and impress her, but you're having a great time talking to other people, completely unbothered by her presence. This behavior signals to everyone, including her, that you have abundance in your life. You don't need her validation or attention to feel good about yourself. This social proof element makes the ignoring strategy even more powerful because it's happening in front of an audience. She's not just dealing with the private confusion of why you're not giving her attention, she's also dealing with the public aspect of other people, noticing that you're not affected by her the way other men are. Women are extremely socially aware and care deeply about how situations appear to others. When it becomes obvious to everyone around that you're not seeking her approval, it raises questions in her mind about what makes you different from other men. Now that you understand the psychology behind why ignoring works, let's talk about how to implement this strategy effectively and ethically. The key word here is strategic. This isn't about being rude or mean, it's about being selective with your attention in a way that creates attraction and establishes proper relationship dynamics. First, you need to understand that this strategy only works when there's already some level of interest or interaction established. You can't ignore someone who doesn't know you exist and expect it to create attraction. The woman needs to be aware of you and have some expectation of receiving attention from you for the withdrawal of that attention to be meaningful. Second, the ignoring needs to be context appropriate. If she's trying to get your attention by being flirtatious or showing off, that's a perfect time to redirect your focus elsewhere. If she's being demanding or testing your boundaries, that's another good time to withdraw attention. But if she's being genuinely sweet and kind, there's no reason to ignore her. The goal is to reward good behavior with your attention and withdraw attention from bad behavior. This creates a clear feedback loop that helps shape how she interacts with you. You're essentially training her to bring her best self to the interaction by only rewarding positive behavior with your valuable attention. Third, the ignoring should be temporary and purposeful. You're not trying to punish her or make her feel bad about herself. You're simply communicating through your actions that your attention is valuable and needs to be earned through good behavior. Once she adjusts her approach and starts treating you with respect, you can return to normal interaction. Let's look at some specific scenarios where strategic ignoring can be effective. She's being overly dramatic, flirty with other guys in front of you, or doing things specifically designed to get a reaction from you. Instead of taking the bait and giving her the reaction she wants, simply redirect your attention to something or someone else. Don't announce what you're doing, just do it. She's being disrespectful, making unreasonable demands, or trying to see how much she can get away with. Instead of arguing or explaining why her behavior is unacceptable, just withdraw your attention completely. Leave the conversation, focus on other people, or simply become unavailable. She's hot and cold with you, sometimes responsive and sometimes distant. Instead of chasing when she's cold, match her energy. When she withdraws, you withdraw too. This prevents you from looking desperate and teaches her that inconsistent behavior results in inconsistent attention from you. You're in a group setting, and she's clearly expecting to be the center of attention. Instead of joining the crowd of guys competing for her attention, focus on having great conversations with other people. Be friendly if she approaches you, but don't seek her out or try to impress her. The key in all these scenarios is to remain calm and unbothered. You're not ignoring her out of anger or spite. You're simply choosing to invest your attention where it's appreciated and reciprocated. This subtle shift in your energy communicates confidence and abundance, which are inherently attractive qualities. Before we go further, I want to address the ethical considerations of using these psychological principles. There's a fine line between understanding female psychology to create healthy relationship dynamics and manipulating someone's emotions for selfish purposes. The ethical way to use strategic ignoring is as a boundary-setting tool and a way to encourage mutual respect in your interactions. You're not trying to hurt anyone or make them feel bad about themselves. You're simply communicating that your attention is valuable and should be earned through respectful behavior. The unethical way would be to deliberately trigger someone's insecurities or emotional pain for your own entertainment, or to gain power over them. This kind of behavior is manipulative and can cause real psychological harm. The difference comes down to your intentions and how you implement the strategy. Are you doing this to create healthier relationship dynamics, where both people treat each other with respect? Or are you doing this to hurt someone or gain unfair advantage over them? If your goal is to build genuine connections based on mutual respect and attraction, then strategic ignoring can be a valuable tool. If your goal is to manipulate or control someone, then you're heading down a dark path that won't lead to the kind of relationships you actually want. Now let's talk about the common mistakes men make when trying to implement this strategy. These mistakes can backfire and actually make you less attractive, so it's important to avoid them. Some guys are so transparent about their ignoring strategy that it becomes obvious they're playing games. Women are intuitive and can usually tell when someone is artificially creating distance just to manipulate their emotions. This comes across as immature and actually makes you less attractive. If she's being sweet, respectful, and genuinely trying to connect with you, there's no reason to ignore her. The strategy only works when you're selectively withdrawing attention from negative behaviors while rewarding positive ones. Some men interpret ignore her to mean be completely cold and unavailable. This isn't attractive either. You want to be warm and engaging when she earns your attention, and simply redirect your focus when she doesn't. If you're ignoring her because you're afraid of rejection, or because you don't know what to say, that's not strategic ignoring, that's just insecurity. True strategic ignoring comes from a place of abundance and choice, not fear and scarcity. This isn't a magic trick that instantly makes every woman obsessed with you. It's a long-term strategy for establishing better relationship dynamics and creating genuine attraction over time. The most powerful form of ignoring isn't strategic at all, it's authentic. When you're genuinely busy building an amazing life, pursuing your goals, developing your skills, and enjoying meaningful relationships, you naturally become less available to women who don't add value to your life. This authentic unavailability is more attractive than any strategic technique because it comes from a real place of abundance. You're not playing games or trying to manipulate anyone's emotions. You're simply living such a fulfilling life that you don't have time or energy to waste on people who don't appreciate you. When a woman senses that your unavailability is authentic rather than manufactured, it makes you infinitely more attractive. She knows that you have real options and real value, not just artificial scarcity that you're creating to impress her. This is why the most attractive men often seem effortlessly unavailable. They're not trying to ignore women, they're just so focused on their purpose and so fulfilled by their lives that they naturally filter out interactions that don't meet their standards. The reason ignoring her works isn't because of some magic psychological trick. It works because it signals that you have high value and abundant options. But here's the thing, if you don't actually have high value and abundant options, the strategy won't be sustainable long term. The most powerful thing you can do is to actually become the kind of man who naturally attracts high quality women. Develop your skills, pursue your passions, build your career, improve your health, cultivate interesting hobbies, and create a social circle of people who respect and value you. When you're genuinely living an amazing life, you won't need to strategically ignore anyone. You'll naturally be selective with your attention because you have better things to do than chase after people who don't appreciate you. This is the real secret behind why ignoring her works. It's not about the ignoring itself, it's about what the ignoring represents. It represents choice, abundance, high standards, and self-respect. These are the qualities that create genuine attraction, not temporary psychological tricks. If your goal is just to hook up with women or get temporary attention, then strategic ignoring might give you some short-term results. But if you want to build meaningful, long-term relationships, you need to think about how these dynamics play out over time. In a healthy, long-term relationship, both people should feel valued and appreciated. There should be mutual respect, consistent communication, and emotional support. Strategic ignoring can be useful for establishing boundaries and preventing disrespectful behavior, but it shouldn't be the foundation of your relationship dynamic. The goal is to use these principles to attract high-quality women who will treat you well, and then to build genuine connections based on mutual respect and compatibility. Once you've established that foundation, the need for strategic ignoring should diminish, because you'll both be treating each other well. Remember, the women worth having long-term relationships with are the ones who will respond positively to your boundaries and treat you with respect once they understand your standards. The women who can't handle your boundaries or who need constant games to stay interested probably aren't relationship material anyway. Understanding why ignoring her works is just the beginning. The real work is in building yourself into the kind of man who naturally attracts high-quality women without needing to play games or use psychological tricks. Start by developing a life that you're genuinely excited about. Pursue goals that matter to you, build skills that you're proud of, and create relationships with people who value and respect you. When you're living authentically and purposefully, you'll naturally become more selective with your attention and more attractive to the kind of women you actually want to be with. Practice setting healthy boundaries in all your relationships, not just romantic ones. Learn to communicate your standards clearly and enforce them consistently. This isn't about being mean or controlling. It's about respecting yourself enough to demand respect from others. Work on your emotional intelligence and communication skills. The goal isn't to manipulate women's emotions, it's to understand them well enough to create genuine connections and healthy relationship dynamics. Most importantly, remember that these strategies are tools, not substitutes for becoming a genuinely attractive man. Use them wisely, use them ethically, and always keep the bigger picture in mind. The kind of relationships you want require mutual respect, genuine attraction, and compatible values. Psychology can help you create initial attraction and establish healthy dynamics, but it can't substitute for actually being the kind of person worth being with. The power of ignoring her isn't really about ignoring at all. It's about valuing yourself enough to be selective with your attention, confident enough to maintain your standards, and secure enough to walk away from situations that don't serve you. When you embody these qualities authentically, you won't need to strategically ignore anyone. You'll naturally attract women who appreciate what you have to offer and treat you with the respect you deserve. That's the real psychology behind why ignoring her works, and that's how you can use this knowledge to create the kind of relationships you actually want. Stay strong, brothers, and remember that your attention is valuable. Give it to those who earn it, and don't be afraid to withdraw it from those who don't.